and welcome to Viking Preparedness. I'm Pastor Joe Fox. WROL, without rule of law. It's one of our catchphrases, right? Tiawaki, SHTF, WROL. There's some WROL going on in there. Yeah, there is. So a black man was killed by a white cop. Actually, that's not proven. Black man was killed in police custody, and there's video of a white cop who has him handcuffed on the ground with his knee on his neck, and the guy's saying, "I can't breathe." That guy died in custody. They're looking at it. Of course, for all we know, that guy didn't have a racist bone in his body. For all we know, he was the Grand Kleagle of the local KKK. You know, we don't know, right? Black guy died, white cop. Clearly it's racism. That's the narrative. So then people come out to protest that, which is our right as Americans, to freely assemble, to express our grievances peaceably. And of course, as is always the case, when there's large groups of people, there's interlopers. When emotion gets involved, it's easier to turn people, sway people, and move people. Some bad actors, lots of bad actors, who knows? Clearly, the police in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Somebody said, "Where's this going on? I don't have a TV." Wake up. Clearly the police have been told, back off, don't do anything. Well, that's great for the citizens who pay their tax dollars to have their property and stores and livelihoods taken care of. See, it fits the narrative of the MSM to have black against white, to have places burned. I mean, when you burn the place down, what's going to happen next? Oh, money's going to flow in that everyone's going to put their fingers in to rebuild it. Corruption. I just heard something. Huh. Sounded like a woman's voice. I'm also just waking up. I slept in late today because I was up late last night. So it fits the narrative, right? I was shocked and dismayed. I use those words clearly in my head to see that a police station was taken over. Police forced to evacuate their own station. Evidently, some police officer was scooped off the roof by a helicopter, like, you know, the evacuation of Saigon. And then it was set on fire. Not in my city. Not if I'm the mayor. So that happened. National Guard's there. You see, what's going to happen is, I think, this thing's going to spin up. They're allowing it to spin up. They're allowing it to get out of control. Order out of chaos. And then they're going to bring the hammer in. The National Guard's there. They brought 500 people in. That's not very many. I heard somebody trying to compare it to the Rodney King riots in LA. Incomparable. Let's talk about that. I use this when people talk about establishing martial law in America. To respond to the Rodney King riots in LA, it was all of Los Angeles police, you know, double shifts or whatever they do. They brought in Los Angeles County deputies. They brought in all the state police they could spare. They had jurisdictions all throughout California sending all the officers they could spare. They used the entire California National Guard. They used the 7th Infantry Division. the 9th Infantry Division out of Fort Lewis at the time. And I think it was the 3rd Marine Division, but whatever Marine Division is down there in, I think, Southern California at the time. So 3 divisions of troops to quell this riot in one part of LA. Not LA. One part of LA was on fire. They used 3 divisions of military to finally bring that thing under control. And at the time, we had 10 Army divisions and I think 3 Marine divisions. So if you look at the percent of military combat power that we used to put down a riot in one part of one city, there's no way you could establish martial law across the country. Then there's the police science of, during normal peaceful times, you need 1 police officer per so much population. It's a lot. I don't know what the number is. You can look it up. 10,000 or 100,000 or something. Probably, whatever it is. Well, that's in normal times. But when they say we ain't playing, the only way, somebody made the comment, and I disagree with it on the one hand and understand it on the other hand. Well, there's nothing the police could do. They were outnumbered. Learning point for all you Vikings, all of you, there's always something you can do. Figure it out. You may choose not to do it, but there's always something you can do. Contemplate the unthinkable. That t-shirt is coming. I like it. Contemplate the unthinkable. There's something you could do. If the police in that one precinct had stood shoulder to shoulder on that roof and started shooting everybody down below, no one would have taken over that police station. Am I saying that they should have done that? I am not. But there is something they could do. There's things they could do above that are more reasonable. Fire trucks with water, with CS powder mixed in the water. Tried and true thing for riots. Blow them all back halfway across the block with water. No one will die, probably. There's lots of things you could do. They just chose not to. Urban renewal, baby. Let's burn it down and build it back up. So that's going on. None of these rioters give a darn about George Floyd, and half of them don't know his name. They just care about going and getting some free stuff and lighting a fire and having a party. Hoo-hoo! Yeah! The other thing the media is doing is they're trying to make it look like a black-white thing, but when you actually see crowd photos, there's a whole lot of white and Asian and Hispanic and others in there. It's not just black people rioting. It's not just black people stealing. They're trying to divide the country by racial lines. I saw some comments here and otherwise in other places, people saying, I could see the sky lit up. I'm only so many miles away. Dun, 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 dun. I may have to leave. You think? You think? This stuff is gonna get worse. It ain't getting better, people. It's gonna get worse. And somehow I lost my train of thought. Go figure. The crackdown could be severe. Denver, Memphis, LA. Wait till Chicago gets going. Now, out here, there's not going to be any riot out here tonight. It's just not going to happen. Choices, people. Choices. I was talking about meat with Sister Kate yesterday. We have a huge population in this country. And we have a food system that's pretty awesome. You can, until about 2 months ago, you could, and still, if you look, you could get any kind of food you wanted anytime, in America. And food just flows into the population centers where all the people are, where all the money is, But even out here in the boonies, you go to the grocery stores and they're nice, man. They're nice grocery stores compared to like what we've had to shop from in third world countries when we lived there. They're just awesome. But that's a whole very fragile system, as we're starting to see. And we were talking about how butchers, they ought to be making a killing right now. Like honest to God butchers. You know, you can bring a side of beef in here and we'll cut it up any way you want it and blah, 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 blah. And so Sister Kate first said, yeah, well, they should just go back to butchers. Well, out here, there are butchers, and those butchers could step up their game, and even there's room for more butchers if that's how all the meat was coming. You could just buy a cow from Farmer Bob up the road here and, you know, could start doing things. There ain't no way in our suburbs they're going to allow people to slaughter cows and dispose of the offal and, you know, all that stuff in those huge numbers. I mean, those numbers are just huge. All the more reason to come out of her, my people. Excuse me. Get out of those cities, man. Cities are going to burn. And when the powers that be crack down, they're cracking down in the cities. I heard an interesting blurb on the scanner last night, right before I fell asleep. I went to sleep a little bit after midnight. I know, I'm going back, but I just thought of it. Somebody had reported to the police, probably an employee of a Motel 6, that 5 white males had left Motel 6, and this was like, you know, around 11 o'clock at 11:30 at night, I think, had left Motel 6 with 5 ARs, and they got into a black sedan with Texas plates and said they were going to the protest. Just waiting for something to come of that. But all the cops were looking for a dark sedan with Texas plates, so there you go. Word to the wise there. So stay tuned. There's more coming. No idea how the National Guard is going to react or what they're going to do. I've seen silliness with the National Guard. I've seen goodness with the National Guard. The good thing is, I think, that our National Guard, in many ways now, is blooded. They've been to combat, so they have a more sense of urgency and seriousness and, dare I say, professionalism about them now. So we'll see. But, you know, it's all up to politicians, man. Are they going to make the National Guard carry no ammo or carry their ammo wrapped up, taped, and secured, you know, to be handed out when necessary? I mean, you know. I'm a big guy for, if you have to commit the military, people ought to cry and tremble in fear. Yes, even our people. I'd have made a great, like, Roman general. Just don't mess with Boudica. You know, they ought to do a movie on Boudica. Along the lines of, is that Braveheart? Put that over here. Let's keep talking about riots and chaos and fallout. I don't know where the fallout is going. I imagine some half serious people will try and start some stuff in other cities that may or may not get going. Who knows? Stay tuned, sports fans. Hong Kong. Let's talk about Hong Kong a little bit. Pompeo just said the other day that it is the opinion of the United States that Hong Kong is no longer an autonomous state. What's that mean? What does that portend? Back during the Opium Wars, Britain took Hong Kong from China. Back before my grandpa was born. And then they had it until 1999 was the original deal. But they gave it back a little bit early. And I wanted to do a post on this. I have a picture of my son, who's 8 years old, in Tiananmen Square in China. And I took a picture of him because they had this huge digital clock doing the countdown until the British turned Hong Kong over in 97 is when they decided they were going to do it. And so that clock was ticking down by the second until turnover to China. And so I took a picture of my son in Tiananmen Square. It's really cold. And so when the Brits turned it over to China, here you go, you can have Hong Kong back. An agreement was made that Hong Kong would now be under China's sphere, influence, and control, not Britain, and that Hong Kong, though, would be an autonomous city-state that would have its own government. They'd be able to have freedom of speech, unlike in China, freedom of dissent, those kinds of things. And because of this, the world would treat Hong Kong differently than they did China. At the time, in 1997, when Hong Kong became part of China, it accounted for like 20-something% of China's GDP. I mean, huge, right? What a pearl that they were handed. Today, it's only 2.7, I think that's what I read the other day, percent of China's GDP. So it's only 2.7%. There's a lot of hidden stuff with that. A lot of businesses, you know how Western businesses go to China, build factories, build stuff, and it comes out. All of that starts in Hong Kong. That's the entree. Then they pop in and build factories in China that China controls with slave labor, right? Put the Uyghurs in there. And then the stuff sells, and a lot of the finances that are technically Chinese, not Hong Kong, are still done in Hong Kong. So if Hong Kong kind of gets dismantled or disrupted, it affects a whole lot more than 2.7% of China's GDP. China, U.S. and Hong Kong, they have a really easy visa arrangement with each other. Same with Britain, da-da-da-da-da. So what Trump is saying is, through Pompeo, who I think might be the next president after Trump, what they're saying is we're going to revoke that status. Now all sanctions that apply to China apply to Hong Kong. All the American and other businesses that have started fleeing China because they can see the writing on the wall with this administration. I think some of them are hedging their bets till November, probably more so now. But if Trump stays in office, it's no bueno for doing business in China. Same thing's going to happen in Hong Kong. So all that capital is going to flee. India's opening up their doors wide and saying, come work with us. We're nice. We're already hurting China with sanctions. The U.S. is hurting China with sanctions. They're losing face. Very Asian concept. Oriental concept. Very Asian concept. And I talked about that here before. That's important. And now more so with Hong Kong. I think it's possible that China could be going, you know what? They're sanctioning us. What else can they do? They're not going to attack us. Let's take Hong Kong, the reason Pompeo said that, forgive me, more thinking juice. China's version of Congress just passed a law saying, all right, that deal's done. We're done with that. We're no more political dissension. If you do that, it's treason, and you go to the Chinese gulag. No more this, no more that. China's basically said, we're taking you back. Stop the nonsense. Because of all the riots in Hong Kong, which I'm convinced, I'm very happy to believe that certain three-letter agencies were stoking. Right? Of course we were. So China's like, we've had enough of this nonsense. And it's done. Forget that. No more riots in Hong Kong. And so then we're said, okay, well now they're not autonomous. So since they're not autonomous, they don't get our special deals and dun 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 dun. So that's still gonna trickle out. I think what China passed doesn't take effect till 1 September. So there's some time back in there for back and forth. I don't see either side budging. I see Trump getting more intransigent. You know the word I'm looking for. More of this. Intransigent. I have a better reading and writing vocabulary than speaking vocabulary. All right. So what's next? I think South China Sea. I think China is going to really push in the South China Sea. What's going on in the South China Sea? You can Google it. You can look at Google Maps and stuff. There's these islands that are actually closer to the Philippines and Vietnam than anybody else, that are kind of out in the middle of the ocean, that China somehow says is theirs. The Philippines say is theirs. Vietnam says they're theirs. Malaysia says 2 of them are ours. Singapore says 1 of them is ours. Indonesia says some of them are ours. They're just these little stupid islands about as big as my yard that I just showed you out there. And everybody wants these little stupid islands. Why? Because underneath those islands is a whole lot of gas that they want, right? They all want it. And it's also astride very important sea lanes. And so they're all trying to claim it. Well, you can claim it all you want, but possession is 9/10 of the law. And so what China did is they just went out and they took one of the islands. Mischief Reef, I think it's called. And then they started dredging up sand from the ocean, kind of like in Bahrain, and making the island bigger. And they built naval port on it, and they put a airstrip on it, and they put gun emplacements on it. They built a little fort out there in the middle of the islands, right? And it's technically not theirs, but it's realistically theirs, right? They own it. It's kind of like, who owns 3rd Precinct in Minneapolis? Police precinct. Who owns it? Police don't. As of last night. I'm sure maybe they took it back this morning. People own it. Power to the people! So watch for that to go. And then see, we've said you can't, don't start no stuff here. But here's the problem. We don't have super great relations with Vietnam. We get along with them. It's a great place to retire, so I'm told. For expats, Westerners, your money goes a long way there. And they like us now. Philippines basically booted us out. Doesn't want to play with us anymore. And they had like the biggest claim to these islands other than China. And we were really tight with the Philippines for a while. And so I could have seen us saying when the, Philippines, China, all right, we'll go on Philippines side. And, that gets us in there and big naval battle. Don't see that happening right now. But watch the islands. Watch China's moves in the islands. And then, depending how that goes, watch Taiwan. If we have a Democrat, I don't think a Democrat would do crap against Taiwan if China took it back. I really don't. I do believe that China is the rising power. I've said it for 20 years. I've said for 20 years we ought to attack China. Should have done it 20 years ago. It would have been an easier fight. But that fight is coming, and they're getting stronger, and in many ways we're getting weaker. Will is the strongest thing. Will. There's nothing the police can do, not if they have no will. There's nothing I can do, not if you have no will. There's nothing we can do about China. They're too big, not if we don't have the will. But if you have the will, you can do a lot. Will counts. Tweet, Twitter, YouTube. It's a game, man. Clearly, the social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Google, Twitter, are in the hands of extreme leftists who are using their platforms to push their social agenda and silencing conservative voices. They control all the media, all the newspapers and all that for the most part. And I got to tell you, here comes another little slap for some of you guys. I said, who knows of good unbiased news sources? And everybody piled in. It's like saying, what do you think the best dog is? Everybody piles in. Wow, you all need to take a class on what bias is. Just because they're telling you what you like to hear doesn't mean they don't have a bias, in this case, a very conservative bias. Somebody said the BBC's the best unbiased news source out there. Wow, really? As an aside. But, so they're controlling, and people are stupid. I used to say this all the time. I don't think advertisements work. I was projecting myself on other people. I watch advertisements and get irritated with them and turn them off, and I never buy the stuff I see on advertisements. I buy what I want to buy. I just do. I usually buy what I see other people have, like in person, and I like it. Then I talk to them about it, and then I buy it. That's how I'm affected. But advertisings work. When I advertise a flashlight, lots of people buy it. When I advertise my t-shirts, lots of people buy them. And I'll give you an example. My last t-shirt sales, I just announced it once, and I said it's going to go for 2 weeks, and it's out. And so you get a big spike for 3 days, because I see every time somebody orders one. You get a big spike for 3 days, and then it just trickles off, and then it ends. In the past, when I've sold these, I do that. You get the big spike when I announce it, and then about a week into it, I say, hey, there's only a week left. There's another spike, right, of people buying them. And it's like, advertising works. It's amazing. And so the people are swayed by social media. It's because, and again, I'm talking about Americans in general, but I bet it applies to Westerners. People don't think. They don't think. To any degree at all, they emote. They don't contemplate things deeply. They don't look at what's behind, what's behind, what's behind. And so, yeah, they're swayed by what they read on Twitter and stuff. Orange man bad. And so they thought before Trump took power, nobody liked Trump, if you remember when he came into power, neither side. Well, we'll just print what we want about him in the newspapers and, online news. And so he short-circuited that by going to Twitter, put out what he wanted. I don't need you to report what I want to say. I'll say it. And it worked great. And it took them until just a little while ago to figure out what they were going to do about that. It's like, how do we stop him on our platform from being so popular? And then they just did like some little thing about him glorifying violence, which he wasn't, because they'll show some leftist Antifa person doing something. Same thing with YouTube. You can talk about killing babies all day long, and that's fine. You talk about not killing babies, and that's violent. So he's fighting it. Here's the thing. Who's the prince of the powers of this world? Satan. Who controls everything that's going on right now? Satan. The Father's still in control, Pastor Joe. He has given power of this world to Satan. Satan is the prince of this world for now. It ain't going to get any better. And so now Trump is trying to do this stuff with, we're going to remove you'll be able to be sued, and we're going to pass this and pass that. It's just going to get worse, people. It's all going to get worse, and people are going to get spun up, and I hate you because you like Trump. I hate you because you like whoever's running. I hate you because you're white. I hate you because you're black. I hate you because you're blue. Did you hear that honk? I don't hate anybody. Come out of her, my people. What should we do, Pastor Joe? You should have already done it. Come out of her, my people. Move. Move now. I'm going to wait till I get a good price on my house. Move now. Go rent a place. Go rent a cheap place that you can afford now in the country somewhere. Put your house up for sale. When it sells, buy a place in the country. They rent houses around here for $400 to $600 a month. Houses. I bet they rent them cheaper in other parts of the Ozarks. I'm in kind of a ritzy part of the Ozarks. I bet you they rent them cheaper in other places. I can't. Yeah. Will. The world is going to come apart. You can read about it in the Bible. You can read about it in Nostradamus. You can listen to the Indian, whoever the dudes with the blue kachina, whatever. The seer somebody in South Africa also. Everybody, Ragnarok. Just read about this stuff, people. It's coming. But it doesn't happen like that. It's a process through which you will probably live through most, if not all of it, of the process. How do you want to live? Oh, there's nothing you can do. They're coming for your property too. Long after they put you on the cattle cars and put you in the camps, buddy. Time gives us time to contemplate, think, and plan. Right? Nobody's coming out here. They're sending all the extra people to Minneapolis. I'm not doing anything to make anybody mad. We're just sitting out here in our rocking chairs. Come out of her, my people. That's my best advice. And you guys are messing around. And you have some fantasy. See, I'm getting mad at you because I care about you. You have some fantasy that it's going to be okay, or that you have just a little bit more time. Now, you're out of time. You've been out of time. Do the best you can with what you got where you're at. But most of you think the best you can. What most of you think is the best you can is woefully inadequate and so far below what you can actually accomplish. Most people undersell their ability. I've seen it my whole military career. I can't. You're right. You're done. Meanwhile, I'm hurting worse than you. I'm not as strong as you, and I'm still carrying this stupid rucksack up the side of this mountain. Will. Same thing with come out of her, my people. You got to have the will. Do you want to live through what's coming? How do you want to live through what's coming? Do you think it would be cool to join 4 other brothers in arms, man? We're going to go get our guns and go join the fray on one side or the other, while the city burns around you and tear gas swirls and rubber bullets fly and then real bullets fly and then Molotov cocktails and then Where'd you rather go? Wet a line. Go fishing. Catch yourself a bass. Eat it for supper. Right? Come on now. What's really living? All right, I've gone on long enough. You've heard me pontificate long enough. I care about you guys. This is going to get worse. Watch China. I think they're fixing to make some moves. All right, see you out there.